I sat by the window last night holding a picture in my hands. It was a picture of me and my mom taken years ago when I was still a teenager. My face in the photo was smiling, bright and young. Her arm was around me like the whole world was safe inside her hug. Anyone who looked at it would think we had the perfect bond between mother and daughter. But as I stared at it, tears blurred my eyes. Because I knew what no one else could see, that behind that smile was a truth I never dared to say. My name is Emily. I am 30 years old now and I live in a small town in Pennsylvania. From the outside, people would probably say my life looks peaceful. I have a steady job, a quiet apartment, and friends who sometimes tell me they envy the closeness I have with my mom. They think I am lucky. They think I grew up loved. But love can be complicated. Love can also feel like a cage. Every time my phone rings and I see her name, I feel two emotions at once. One is the old comfort, the feeling of a daughter being wanted. The other is a sharp ache, a reminder of all the words that were hidden from me for so many years. My mom never raised her voice, never hurt me with her hands. But she hurt me in another way, by keeping a truth locked away, a truth that shaped every part of who I became. I remember last night so clearly. The air outside was quiet, only the soft hum of cars in the distance. I sat there, clutching that photo, my chest rising and falling like it was too heavy to breathe. My whole life, I wanted to believe my mom's version of the story. I wanted to believe her words, her explanations, her gentle half-truths. But deep inside, I always felt something missing, like a puzzle with one piece carefully hidden from me. People say mothers always know best. Maybe that's true for some. But for me, my mother's choices built a wall between us, brick by brick, even as we lived in the same house. And last night, as I sat in the dim light of my room, I whispered to myself words I had never dared to admit out loud. I am angry at my mom. Because love is not supposed to be built on lies. That night, when she called me her little girl, I almost screamed, because she wasn't telling me the whole truth. Every Sunday I drive across town to visit my mom. From the outside, our routine looks warm, almost picture perfect. She always greets me at the door with a smile, holding out a plate of cookies or a fresh cup of tea. The neighbors wave and I'm sure they think, what a caring mother she must be and what a devoted daughter. I sit at her kitchen table, the same one I grew up eating breakfast at before school. The table is polished, the curtains are clean, and the smell of homemade food fills the house. If someone walked in, they would believe it was the kind of home people dream about. A place where nothing could ever be broken. But when I sit there across from her, it doesn't feel like home. It feels like a beautiful prison. She talks about her week, about the garden, about neighbors I barely know anymore. I nod, I smile, I laugh at the right places. My hands fold neatly on the table like I'm a polite guest. But inside my chest is tight. Because every word she says is layered with silence. The silence of the things she never told me. She places food in front of me the way she always has. Chicken, rice, vegetables. Meals that once gave me comfort as a child. Now they taste like memories that I can't digest. I chew slowly, forcing myself to swallow, while my heart whispers questions I don't dare to ask. Sometimes she looks at me with such love that it hurts. Her eyes soften, her voice lowers, and she calls me sweetheart. And in that moment, part of me melts like I am safe again. But another part of me hardens because I know she is the same woman who chose not to tell me the truth about my father. She believes she protected me. I believe she betrayed me. I leave her house each time with a fake smile on my face, waving goodbye as if everything is fine. Then when I drive away, I grip the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turn white. From the outside, people see a loving mother-daughter bond. But no one sees how it feels inside me, like I am trapped in a room with no door, decorated with flowers and paintings, but still a prison all the same. One night after dinner she surprised me. As we sat in the living room, she suddenly said, "Emily, I've been thinking. Maybe you should move back in with me. You've been alone for too long." Her voice was calm, caring, almost sweet. I froze. I looked around at the familiar furniture, the photographs on the walls, the smell of her favorite candle. To anyone else, her offer might sound generous. But to me it felt like chains tightening around my wrist. I forced a smile. "I'll think about it," I whispered. That night when she went to bed, I stayed downstairs a little longer. I wandered into the study, her private space I usually avoided. For reasons I can't explain, I opened the drawer of her old desk. At first I only saw pens, paper, and notebooks. But then I noticed an envelope tucked in the back, yellow with age. My heart began to race. I pulled it out slowly, my hands trembling. On the front of the envelope, in handwriting I barely recognized, was a name I hadn't spoken out loud in years. It was my father's name. I held my breath, staring at it in the dim light. My fingers shook so much I almost dropped it. I didn't open it yet, I couldn't. My chest was heavy, my mind spinning. Why was this here? Why had she kept it hidden all these years? I said yes to her plan, but when I opened her old drawer that night, my whole body started shaking. I sat on the edge of my bed that night, staring at the yellow envelope. My hands refused to tear it open. It was as if the paper itself carried a weight I wasn't ready to hold. My father's name, written in faded ink, looked both familiar and foreign. For years I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I didn't need him. My mother always said, "He left us, Emily. He wasn't the kind of man you deserved to call dad." She repeated it so many times that I swallowed it whole, like medicine I didn't want but was forced to take. I built my anger at him on her words, never realizing they might not have been the whole truth. But seeing that envelope cracked something open inside me. Memories I thought I had buried came flooding back. I remembered being 13, waiting by the window for him to show up on my birthday. Mom had promised he would try to call. I sat there all afternoon staring at the phone, hoping it would ring. It never did. When I asked her why, she simply said, "He doesn't care enough, sweetheart. Don't waste your tears on him." And I believed her. But now, holding this envelope, I couldn't stop wondering, what if she hadn't told me everything? What if he had tried to reach me? That thought was like a knife. The next morning I slipped the envelope into my bag and took it home. For hours I placed it on my kitchen counter, pacing back and forth, fighting myself. Finally, with trembling hands, I opened it. Inside was a letter, dated almost 15 years ago. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. "My dearest Emily, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I tried to come, but your mother said it was better if I stayed away. She told me you were angry with me, that you didn't want to see me. I didn't want to hurt you more. But I never stopped loving you. Please believe that." I dropped the letter onto the counter. My knees went weak and I sank to the floor. For the first time in years, I felt the ghost of my father beside me, not as the man who abandoned me, but as the man who had been kept away. And suddenly my whole life made sense in the most painful way. I had rushed into choices, into people, into places, anything that could fill the hollow space his absence left behind. When I was 20, I thought I had found love. His name was Daniel. He was kind at first, patient, the kind of man who told me I deserved the world. I clung to him like he was air, desperate to believe that someone could choose me, even if my father hadn't. But Daniel was not the answer. He loved me, yes, but I didn't love him the way I wanted to. Deep inside, I knew I had never healed. I was only trying to cover the wound. Our relationship burned out quickly, but the emptiness stayed. That's when I rushed into another decision. Marriage. I thought being a wife would make me whole, would silence the questions that haunted me at night. It didn't. It only made the silence louder. I wasn't really angry at Daniel. I wasn't even angry at myself for marrying too soon. My anger had always been at my mom, for shaping my story with lies, for making me believe my father had abandoned me when maybe that wasn't the full truth. I folded the letter back into the envelope, my tears dripping onto the paper. My hands shook, my chest ached, but one thought grew louder than all the rest. She knew. She knew he loved me. And she kept it from me. The ghost of my father had never left me. He had always been with me. In my doubts, in my longing, in the way I searched for love in all the wrong places. That night as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed. It was a text message. The sender's name made my breath stop. It wasn't my father, of course, he had passed years ago. But it was someone connected to him, my aunt, his sister. Her message was short, simple. "Emily, I know this is sudden, but I think it's time you heard the truth about your dad." My whole body froze. I hadn't spoken to her in years. She had always been distant, almost like she was afraid to be part of my life. Now, after all this time, she wanted to talk? My hands shook as I read the words again and again. The ghost of my father was no longer silent. His voice, through others, was reaching me after all these years. And in that moment my anger at Mom grew sharper, clearer. Because the truth was never lost. It was only hidden. I buried the past. Until it texted me again after 4 years of silence. I tried to live as if nothing had changed. I folded the letter back into the envelope, tucked it deep inside my dresser drawer and told myself to forget it. My life was already complicated enough. I had work, bills, friends who asked too many questions. I couldn't afford to reopen a wound that had been bleeding quietly for years. So I pretended. I pretended when I drove to my mom's house the next Sunday, smiling as if my heart wasn't breaking. I sat at her kitchen table, complimented her cooking, and let her fuss over me like she always did. I pretended when she asked about my week, telling her stories about my job and my neighbors, never once mentioning the letter that burned inside my pocket like fire. I thought maybe I could bury it again. Maybe if I kept playing the role of the good daughter, the obedient daughter, the one who didn't ask hard questions, the ache in my chest would fade. But pretending doesn't heal you. Every word my mom spoke felt like a knife, not because of what she said but because of what she didn't say. She asked me if I had thought about moving back home, her eyes hopeful, her smile soft. I forced a laugh, deflecting the question, but my heart screamed inside me. How can I live under the same roof with someone who built my life on a lie? At work I pretended too. I laughed at my coworkers' jokes, joined them for lunch, even smiled when someone teased me about always being the strong one. But the truth was I felt like a ghost. My body was present, but my soul was wandering, searching for answers in places I couldn't reach. One evening I met my closest friend Sarah for coffee. She had known me since high school, one of the few people who had seen me cry when my father disappeared from my life. As soon as I sat down across from her, she studied my face with that sharp intuition only real friends have. "You look tired," she said gently. "I'm fine," I replied too quickly. She tilted her head. "Emily, you're carrying something. You can hide it from everyone else but not from me." Her words broke something inside me. I lowered my eyes, stirring my coffee though I hadn't added sugar. My hands trembled slightly. For a moment I thought about telling her everything. The letter, the lies, the anger boiling inside me. But the words stuck in my throat. Instead I whispered, "Do you ever feel like your whole life was written by someone else?" She didn't answer right away. She just reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Yes. But the only way to take it back is to stop pretending." Her words echoed in my mind long after we parted. That night I returned home and lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I thought about Sarah's advice. Stop pretending. But how could I? How could I confront the woman who had raised me, fed me, cared for me, and yet betrayed me in the deepest way? Days passed and the weight grew heavier. I snapped at coworkers, ignored calls from friends, and avoided my mom's invitations. But silence can't be hidden forever. One evening as I sat in my apartment staring blankly at the television, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. I hesitated but finally answered. "Emily," she said softly, "are you okay? You sound distant these days." Her voice was gentle, full of concern. For a second I wanted to break down and scream the truth. "No, I'm not okay. You lied to me. You stole my father's love from me." But the words didn't come. Instead I forced a smile into my tone and said, "I'm just tired, Mom. Work has been stressful." But something in my voice must have betrayed me. Because after a long pause she asked, "Are you angry at me?" The question froze me. My heart raced, my throat tightened. I wanted to deny it, to keep pretending. But silence filled the line. I couldn't answer. Finally I whispered, "I don't know." Then I hung up. That night I broke. I curled up on my bed, clutching the letter in my hands, sobbing into the darkness. I cried not only for my father, but for the years of love and anger twisted together inside me. For the girl I had been who had waited by the phone on her birthday never knowing the truth. And as I cried I realized something. My mom wasn't blind. She could feel the distance. She could sense the truth pressing against the walls I had built. Pretending wasn't just killing me. It was killing whatever fragile bond we still had left. The next morning I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were swollen, my face pale. I barely recognized the woman staring back. I thought about Sarah's words again. The only way to take it back is to stop pretending. I knew then that I couldn't keep living this way. I had to confront her. I had to let the truth out even if it shattered everything. Because silence is heavy. And mine was breaking me apart. That night I cried into my pillow because I finally admitted, I wasn't angry at my dad. I was angry at Mom. I knew I couldn't hide anymore. Pretending had drained me, silence had eaten me alive, and the letter in my drawer burned like a secret waiting to explode. I had avoided her calls for almost a week. My stomach twisted with guilt every time I saw her name flash on my phone. But guilt wasn't enough to bury the truth anymore. So one Saturday afternoon I drove to her house. The sky was gray, the kind of heavy gray that feels like rain could fall at any moment. My hands gripped the steering wheel the whole way, my chest rising and falling too fast. By the time I pulled into her driveway, my palms were damp with sweat. She greeted me at the door with a smile, the same smile she had worn for years. "Emily, sweetheart, I was just about to call you." I forced a smile, stepping inside. The house smelled like cinnamon, warm and comforting just like always. But this time the comfort didn't reach me. We sat at the kitchen table, her favorite place to talk. She poured tea into my cup, the steam rising between us. For a moment I wanted to run. I wanted to take the tea, talk about work, laugh at old memories and pretend nothing was wrong. But I couldn't. Not anymore. I took a deep breath, my fingers trembling around the cup. "Mom," I whispered, "we need to talk." Her smile faltered. She set down her spoon, her eyes searching mine. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" I pulled the envelope from my bag and placed it on the table between us. Her eyes widened, and in that second I saw the truth written across her face. She knew exactly what it was. "Where did you find this?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "In your desk," I said softly. "Why didn't you ever show me, Mom? Why didn't you tell me Dad tried to reach me?" Her lips parted, but no words came. She stared at the envelope like it was poison. Finally, after a long silence, she whispered, "Because I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" My voice shook. "Afraid I'd know he loved me? Afraid I'd want him in my life." Tears filled her eyes. She reached across the table, but I pulled my hand away. Her fingers hovered in the air before dropping back to her lap. "Emily," she said, her voice breaking, "your father and we were broken. He made mistakes, he hurt me, and I couldn't let him hurt you too. I thought keeping him away was protecting you. I thought if you hated him you wouldn't miss him." Her words pierced through me, but they didn't heal. They only deepened the wound. "So you lied? You let me grow up thinking I wasn't wanted. You let me believe I was abandoned." She bowed her head, her shoulders trembling. "I only lied because I loved you." The silence after her words was unbearable. My chest rose and fell with shaky breaths, my eyes burning. For a long time neither of us spoke. Only the ticking of the kitchen clock filled the room. Finally I whispered, "Do you have any idea what that did to me? Do you know how many nights I cried myself to sleep thinking my dad didn't want me? Do you know how many mistakes I made chasing love in all the wrong places, because I thought no man could ever stay?" Tears slid down her cheeks. "I thought I was saving you." I shook my head. "No, Mom. You were saving yourself. You didn't trust him. You didn't forgive him. And so you let me carry the burden instead." Her sobs were quiet, restrained, the kind of crying you do when you've held everything inside for too long. She whispered, "I never wanted to hurt you. I swear to God, Emily, I thought I was doing the right thing." My throat tightened, my body trembling. I wanted to scream, to release years of anger. But all that came out was a whisper. "You should have given me the choice. It wasn't yours to take." The silence that followed felt endless. She didn't argue. She didn't defend herself anymore. She just sat there, her hands folded in her lap, her face wet with tears. For the first time, I saw her not as the strong mother who had raised me, but as a flawed, frightened woman who had made a choice she couldn't undo. A woman who carried her own scars, but who had passed the deepest one on to me. I stood slowly, my chair scraping the floor. She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. "Emily, please. Don't leave like this." I swallowed hard, my vision blurring. I don't know how to stay, Mom. Not right now. As I walked toward the door, her voice trembled behind me. Thank you for not lying one last time. I froze in the doorway, her words slicing through me. My chest tightened, my legs weak, but I couldn't turn back. Not this time. I closed the door behind me, the sound echoing like an ending. When I stood up to leave, she whispered, I only lied because I loved you. And that was the moment my anger burned the most. The days after that conversation felt strange. The air around me seemed heavier, the silence inside me sharper. For the first time in years, I wasn't pretending anymore. But honesty had its own weight. I didn't call my mom. She didn't call me. A week passed. Then every night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was sitting at her kitchen table waiting for my voice. I wondered if she cried into her hands the way I cried into my pillow. I told myself I was done with her lies, that I needed distance to breathe. But the truth was, I missed her. Anger doesn't erase love. It just complicates it. So I focused on myself. I started walking after work, long quiet walks through the park near my apartment. The trees were just beginning to change color, leaves floating down like soft reminders that everything in life has seasons. Some seasons are green and full. Others are bare and cold. But nothing stays the same forever. I began journaling too. Each night I wrote down one memory of my father. The way he used to carry me on his shoulders, the way he laughed at his own bad jokes. Then I wrote about my mom, the good and the bad. Some pages were filled with rage, others with gratitude. Somehow putting the words on paper made the heaviness easier to carry. One afternoon while cleaning my apartment, I found the envelope again. I pulled the letter out and read my father's words once more. This time I noticed something I hadn't before. At the bottom of the page, there was a small note scribbled in the corner, almost as if it had been added quickly. If you ever wonder about me, Emily, look in the old music box I gave your mother. The one with the blue ribbon. My breath caught. I remembered that music box. It had sat on Mom's dresser for years, dusty but beautiful. I hadn't seen it in a long time. A week later, I gathered the courage to return to her house. She opened the door slowly, her eyes tired but soft. Neither of us spoke at first. Then she stepped aside, letting me in. The silence between us was heavy but not hostile. It was the kind of silence that waits for courage. I walked to her bedroom and there it was. The music box with the blue ribbon resting on the dresser like it had been waiting for me all along. My hands shook as I lifted it. Inside, beneath the faded lining, was another folded note. My father's handwriting covered the page. This one was shorter, but it was enough. Emily, no matter what happens between your mother and me, never doubt this. I wanted you. I loved you. And I always will. My tears fell onto the paper as I clutched it to my chest. Behind me, I heard my mother's soft sob. I turned, and for the first time, I saw her not as the keeper of lies, but as a woman who had been afraid. Afraid to lose me. Afraid to face her own pain. We didn't speak much. We didn't need to. We just stood there, both of us crying, both of us broken in our own ways. That night, I drove home with the letter beside me. For the first time, the silence didn't feel like a prison. It felt like space. Space to heal, space to forgive, space to breathe. I don't know if my anger at Mom will ever disappear completely. Some wounds leave scars no matter how much time passes. But I know now that my story is mine to write. Not hers. Not my father's. My. And if you're listening to me, if you've ever felt betrayed by the very person you trusted most, please hear this. You are not alone. Anger doesn't make you ungrateful. Pain doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. If you have ever felt like me, angry, broken, betrayed, then you know the reason why I am angry at Mom.